Hi, Cules. Hold on tight, because at Barça, things are heating up, and not just because someone left the heating on at Camp Nou. The Blaugrana dressing room, that place where dreams of titles and tactical masterstrokes are usually forged, is living through a drama that not even the best Netflix screenwriter could have imagined. It all started with a draw, a simple 1-1 against Rayo Vallecano, which, while not sounding like a disaster, left Hansi Flick looking like someone who just bit into a lemon. And not just any lemon, one of those that make you grimace as if you've just seen the price of a ticket for a Classico. But let's take it step by step, because this story has more layers than an onion, and believe me, it's making more than one person cry. It's a sunny day in Barcelona, but in the dressing room, it feels like a storm is brewing. Flick, the German coach who arrived at Barça with the mission of restoring its European glory and who already won a domestic treble last season, is in the eye of the storm. The man, known for his Teutonic discipline and his ability to transform teams, is not happy. And when Flick isn't happy, he doesn't start singing German opera, no. He delivers a speech that resonates like a clap of thunder. After the draw at Vallecas, Flick showed up at the press conference with the seriousness of a teacher about to make the whole class repeat the year. Last year, we played as a team, but now I see egos. And egos kill success. He dropped that like a live grenade. Boom. That's when the chaos began. In the dressing room, Flick's words fell like a bucket of icy water in the middle of a Siberian winter. The players, who had just come off a golden year with titles and good vibes, looked at each other thinking, egos, who? Me, I'm humbler than a mortadella sandwich. But the glances almost instinctively turned to one figure. Lamine Yamal, the 18-year-old gem who wears the number 10 like it's a superhero cape. Lamine, with his audacity on the pitch and his talent for leaving opponents standing like training cones, is the darling of the Barça faithful. But he is also, according to some, the epicenter of this storm. Lamine, who is currently focused on the Spanish national team, didn't stay silent. Because if this guy has one thing, besides a devilish dribble, it's character. In an interview with RTVE, he responded to Flick with the calm of someone ordering a coffee on a Rambla terrace. I don't think what happened at Vallecas had anything to do with egos. It's more that we didn't start the season with the same intensity as last year, he said, probably adjusting his cleats with that trademark calm. And he added, as if it were nothing, we've taken 7 points out of 9 in tough stadiums, and no one talks about that. Bam. A verbal jab that left more than one person speechless. Lamine, at just 18, had just corrected the great ANS Flick. And if you're already freaking out over this verbal exchange, buckle up, because what comes next is even stronger. Lamine's response didn't just make a juicy headline for the press, it also set social media on fire. On X, the Cules split like they had to choose between pizza with or without pineapple. Some supported the young prodigy, great Lamine, putting things in their place, Flick shouldn't play the sergeant too much, while others, more loyal to the coach, counterattacked, Flick is right. Someone needs to put these little stars in their place. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, the tension was palpable, like you could cut it with a butter knife. Even though Lamine insisted the team was united, Flick's words had left an open wound. Are there really uncontrollable egos at Barça, or is the German, with his Prussian general mentality, tightening the screws too much? Hansi Flick, for those who don't know him, isn't the type to beat around the bush. This man, who led Bayern to a sextuple, has a direct style. He's the kind of coach who looks you in the eye and says, either you run or you stink. And with Lamine, he seems to have decided to turn up the heat. According to sources close to the club, Flick is particularly disappointed with the youngster's defensive attitude. Yes, Lamine is a magician with the ball, capable of nutmegging someone in a packed elevator, but Flick wants more. He wants him to press, to track back, to be the first to chase down the opposing fullback. In short, he wants Lamine to be some kind of football cyborg, lethal in attack, relentless in defense, and if possible, to take corners with spin. Maybe that's asking a lot, but Flick isn't the negotiating type. The problem is that Lamine, with his youth and boundless talent, doesn't seem ready to be intimidated. In that same interview with RTVE, the guy dropped a golden line, everything that happens in my life will be commented on, and a lot of things are made up. It doesn't affect me too much. I only listen to my inner circle. In other words, Lamine has more composure than a Zen monk in a traffic jam. And while that's admirable, it doesn't help calm the waters in a dressing room where, according to some media, there's more drama than in a Venezuelan telenovela. Let's talk about context, because this isn't just a clash of egos between a coach and his star. Barça, despite being joint leaders in La Liga with Real Madrid and Athletic, isn't playing with the same spark as last year. The draw against Rayo Vallecano, a team that shouldn't pose a problem for the Cules, was a warning. The match was a disaster: turnovers, lack of intensity, and a controversial penalty that saved a point thanks to Lamine. But Flick, far from blaming the pitch or the referee, who, by the way, had a day to forget, pointed the finger at his players. "We made too many mistakes. I'm not happy," he said with the face of someone who just found a stain on their favorite shirt. And when the boss says that, the dressing room trembles. However, not everything is so bleak. Credit where it's due: Lamine, at just 18, already has 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 league games. He's the offensive engine of the team, the one who brings the magic to a Barça that, without him, sometimes looks like a car without fuel. And that's not all. Lamine is a leader in the making. On the pitch, he dares everything. Off it, he responds to criticism with a maturity that many veterans would envy. Yet Flick seems to think this leadership needs polishing. He wants Lamine to be the glue that unites the dressing room, the link between young talents like PEDRI and GAVI and veterans like Lewandowski. But is it fair to put so much responsibility on the shoulders of a guy who can't even legally drink a beer in some countries? Meanwhile, the dressing room is boiling over. According to journalist Elena Cundiz, Flick feels the group is dividing. Some players, like PEDRI, have distanced themselves from the controversy, saying they don't feel targeted by the comments about egos. Others, like Dani Olmo, have also backed Lamine, insisting the team is united. But all eyes are on the 18-year-old, who, like it or not, is the center of attention. And not just because of his talent, but because Flick, with his comments, has placed him in the eye of the storm. Is Lamine the problem, or is he just the scapegoat for a coach trying to get the whole team back on track? The press, as expected, has thrown itself headfirst into this drama. Headlines like "Flick targets Yamal" or "Lamine responds to the warning" are everywhere. On X, the memes didn't take long to appear. There's one where Flick shouts, "Less ego, more defense," through a megaphone, while Lamine nutmegs an opponent. And while humor helps lighten the mood, the reality is that the next match against Valencia will be a crucial test. If Barça stumbles again, doubts about Flick's authority and Lamine's leadership will multiply. And if they win, well, maybe everyone will hug it out and sing "Caroline" in the dressing room. But that, my friends, remains to be seen. By the way, speaking of seeing things, subscribe to the channel, because you won't see this on the news. Here, we tell you what's happening behind the scenes, the juicy details that don't make the headlines, because the drama doesn't stop there. There are even more layers to this story, and some involve Flick himself. The German, who has proven to be a tactical genius, also has a reputation for being ruthless. At Bayern, he didn't hesitate to bench stars like Müller if they didn't meet his expectations. And at Barça, he's already shown his iron fist. For example, in a match against Benfica, he substituted Lamine in the 56th minute for Ferran Torres. The reason? The guy wasn't defending the way Flick wanted. Lamine returned to the bench looking like he didn't see that coming, but Flick, with the calm of someone who knows he's in control, explained his decision. An iron fist in a velvet glove, but also a clear message: no one is above the team. And that's where things get interesting, because Lamine, though young, isn't the type to stay quiet. On another occasion, after being subbed off against Atlanta, he said, "It was a moment of frustration. Everyone wants to play, but I respect my teammates." Words from someone who knows he's in the spotlight but won't bow his head. And while this attitude is admirable, it can also be a double-edged sword. Because Flick, with his experience, knows that a dressing room full of young talent and simmering egos can be a ticking time bomb. And if it's not managed well, Barça could go from being a championship team to one fighting for 4th place. But it's not all drama. There are also moments of light in this story. For example, a viral video on X shows Flick pulling up Lamine's shorts during training, a gesture that sparked laughter among the players. These little details show that, despite the tension, there's good chemistry between the coach and his star. Lamine, in an interview with UEFA, made it clear, "Flick is a nice person, he asks how you're doing, he teaches you a lot, he's strict, but he knows what each player needs." Words that show that, even with friction, there's mutual respect. So, what's really happening in the Barça dressing room? Is it total chaos, as some headlines suggest, or just a rough patch. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Flick is trying to shape a young and talented team, but one with strong personalities. Lamine, for his part, is navigating the complicated world of being a superstar at 18, with the pressure of a club like Barça and a coach who doesn't cut him any slack. And the rest of the dressing room, from veterans like Lewandowski to youngsters like GAVI, is caught in the middle, trying to maintain unity. What's clear is that this Barça isn't the same as last year's. The spark that led them to win La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Supercopa isn't burning as brightly. And Flick, with his experience, knows he can't let the team slack off. That's why his words about egos, though harsh, are an attempt to wake the group up. But it's also a risk, because singling out a player like Lamine, who is the soul of the team on the pitch, could create more division than unity. The next match against Valencia will be key, not just for the points, but for what it represents for the team's dynamic. If Lamine shines, if Barça plays with the intensity Flick demands, maybe this drama will just be a footnote. But if the team stumbles again, the cracks in the dressing room could widen. And at a club like Barça, where every draw is lived like a Greek tragedy, that's not good news. Meanwhile, the Cules remain glued to their screens, waiting for the next episode of this saga, because at Barça, there's never a dull day. And if you want to follow every detail of this drama, every goal, every statement that shakes the dressing room, you know what to do. Subscribe to the channel, because here, we don't just tell you what happens on the pitch, but also what goes on behind the scenes, where the real stories are cooked up. And as the Cules continue to live through this situation with bated breath, the atmosphere in the Barça dressing room feels like a game of chess where every move could be decisive. At Camp Nou, the mood is a mix of anticipation and nervousness, as if everyone knows something big is about to happen, but no one knows exactly what. Training sessions, which are usually filled with laughter and camaraderie, now have a tenser vibe. It's not that the players are fighting like on a reality show, but there's an awkward silence, the kind you notice when someone brings up a sensitive topic at a family dinner. Hansi Flick, his tactical tablet under his arm, strides across the pitch like a general inspecting his troops. And even if he doesn't say it out loud, everyone knows he's looking for answers. Lamine Yamal, meanwhile, trains with his usual intensity, as if Flick's words are just a distant echo. You can see him dribbling past cones with insulting ease, as if the ball is glued to his shoes. But there's something different in his body language. It's not the typical spark of a teenager living a dream. There's a new gravity in his eyes, as if he's processing everything that's happening. His teammates, from the closest like GAVI to the most experienced like Ter Stegen, watch him out of the corner of their eye, not with distrust, but with curiosity. How is this kid handling the pressure of being at the center of this media storm? Because even if Lamine says it doesn't affect him, no one can completely ignore the weight of a club like Barça. On the bench, Flick's assistants are in damage control mode. Jordi Cruyff, one of the Germans' closest assistants, is seen talking to the players one by one, like a mediator at a peace summit. According to internal sources, Cruyff is trying to smooth things over, making sure Flick's words aren't misinterpreted. But it's not easy. The Barça dressing room is a melting pot of personalities. There are the youngsters like Lamine, GAVI, and Alejandro Bald, full of fire and ambition. There are the veterans like Lewandowski and Gundogan, who know what it's like to win and lose in crucial moments. And then there's Frenkie de Jong, who always seems to be in his own bubble, focused on the ball and little else. Unifying this group is no easy task, and Flick knows it. Meanwhile, the press continues to fan the flames. In Barcelona newsrooms, journalists are overwhelmed. Every statement, every gesture, every tweet is analyzed as if it were the Da Vinci Code. On RAC1, a pundit claims Flick is exasperated by the attitude of some players, not just Lamine. According to him, the German has noticed a lack of commitment in training, especially in defensive drills. Flick wants a team that runs like hunting dogs, but some are more concerned with their Instagram stats than with winning the ball back, the commentator says with that mix of exaggeration and truth that characterizes radio debates. And even if he doesn't name names, everyone knows who he's talking about. On X, the intensity is the same. The hashtags #Flick vs Yamal and #ChaosAtBarca are among the most popular, and the memes keep flooding in. There's one particularly funny one showing Lamine dribbling past Flick in training with the text, "When your coach criticizes you, but you're still the boss." Another user, more biting, writes, "Flick wants Lamine to be like Kimmich, but Lamine just wants to be Lamine." And amid all this noise, the Kules are divided between their unwavering support for their young star and their trust in a coach who, let's not forget, has won more trophies in 2 years than many have in their entire careers. If you're hooked on this drama like we are, subscribe to the channel, because here we analyze every detail as if it were a Champions League match. But let's get back to the pitch, where the action is happening. In training, Flick has ramped up the intensity. High-pressing drills are now a daily occurrence, and it's not uncommon to hear the German shouting instructions in English tinged with a Germanic accent that sometimes sounds like a tongue-twister. Press, zusammen. The players, sweating, try to keep up. Lamine, in particular, seems under the microscope. During a rondo session, Flick approaches and corrects his positioning, pointing out how he should close passing lanes. Lamine nods, but there's a glint in his eyes that says, "Okay, boss, but don't ask me to stop dribbling." It's this mix of respect and rebellion that makes Lamine so fascinating. Meanwhile, the team's veterans are trying to keep the ship afloat. Lewandowski, who at 37 remains a killer in the box, has taken on a big brother role. During a training break, he's seen talking to Lamine, gesturing with his hands as if explaining something important. No one knows exactly what he's saying, but it's probably something like, "Kid, listen to the boss, but don't stop being you." Because Lewandowski, who has played under demanding coaches like Pep Guardiola, knows what it's like to deal with a strong-willed tactician. And even though the Pole isn't one to talk much in public, his presence in the dressing room is an anchor for the younger players. Another trying to calm the waters is PEDRI. The Canary Islander, who has regained his spark after a season marred by injuries, is one of the few who seems immune to the drama. In an impromptu press conference, PEDRI drops one of his typical conciliatory lines. "Here, everyone wants the same thing, to win. The ego stories are just outside noise." But even if he says it with his wise beyond his years smile, he can't deny the atmosphere is charged. Even GAVI, who is normally a whirlwind of positive energy, seems quieter than usual. And that, for a guy who celebrates every tackle as if it were a goal in a Champions League final, is a sign that something isn't quite right. The next match against Valencia, played at Mestalla, is not just any game. It's an opportunity for Barça to show they can overcome this rough patch. Flick, who knows the world's eyes are on him, is preparing for the match as if it were a final. In tactical meetings, he emphasizes the importance of unity. "We don't win if we're not united," he repeats like a mantra. And even if his message is clear, some players aren't sure how to interpret it. Is it a veiled criticism of Lamine, or a reminder for everyone? The only certainty is that Flick won't back down. If he's proven one thing in his career, it's that he doesn't flinch when it comes to making tough decisions. Lamine, for his part, is determined to speak on the pitch. In training, he seems more focused than ever, repeating dribbles, shots, and yes, even a few defensive sprints to please Flick. But let's not kid ourselves, Lamine is an artist, not a laborer. His game is pure creativity, and asking him to become a defensive midfielder would be like asking Picasso to paint white walls. Flick knows this, and that's why his challenge is to find a balance. He wants Lamine to be disciplined, but without extinguishing the spark that makes him special. And that, my friends, is the big question: can Flick shape Lamine without breaking him? Within the club, the board is also paying close attention. Joan Laporta, who is not exactly a master of discretion, has avoided making public comments on the matter, but according to sources close to him, the president is in constant contact with Flick, ensuring the situation doesn't spiral out of control. Laporta knows Lamine is more than just a player. He's a symbol, the future of Barça, the guy who can fill the void left by legends like Messi. But he also knows Flick is the man who brought stability to the team after years of chaos. For now, the president is opting for diplomacy, letting the German and his star sort out their differences. Meanwhile, the Kules are divided. On the streets of Barcelona, you hear all kinds of opinions. In a bar near Camp Nou, a group of friends passionately debates. Lamine is just a kid, but he's right. "It's not entirely his fault," says one, sipping his beer. No. Flick needs to lay down the law. "If you let the youngsters do whatever they want, it turns into a circus," another replies, gesturing as if he's managing the match. And so, between beers and tapas, the Barça faithful live their own drama with the passion that only a club like this can generate. On X, the discussion is no less intense. One user writes, "If Flick keeps riding Lamine like this, he's going to burn him out. This guy is our future, not a soldier. Another replies, Flick knows what he's doing. Look at what he did with Bayern. Lamine needs to learn how to work. And amid all these debates, memes remain a comic relief. One of the most shared shows Lamine and Flick in a boxing ring, with the referee saying, no low blows, because even though the situation is serious, humor is the Kuhl's escape valve. And if you want to follow every meme, every analysis, and every detail of this Blaugrana soap opera, don't hesitate. Subscribe to the channel, because here we tell you everything, down to the finest details. Tactically, Flick is making adjustments. In recent training sessions, he's tested a more solid 4-2-3-1 formation with Lamine, but with clear instructions to track back and help in defense. He's also given more responsibility to Dani Olmo, who is starting to earn his place in the starting 11. Olmo, with his versatility and tireless work ethic, is the kind of player Flick loves, someone who combines talent and effort. And even if no one says it out loud, some think Flick is using Olmo as an example for Lamine, as if to say, look, kid, this is how it's done. But Lamine isn't backing down. In a small-sided game during training, he pulls off a magnificent goal. He receives the ball, fakes out balled, and places it into the top corner from outside the box. His teammates applaud, and even Flick cracks half a smile. Moments like these remind everyone why Lamine is so special, but also why Flick is so demanding of him. Because a talent like his can't be limited to flashes of genius. He needs to be consistent, decisive, a leader. And as the match against Valencia approaches, the question remains, will Flick succeed in uniting the team, or is this dispute with Lamine just the beginning of something bigger? The Kuhls, from the stands of Camp Nou to sofas around the world, are waiting for answers, because at Barça, every day is an emotional roller coaster, and this story, my friends, is far from over.